Yes, yes, yes. I'm resident of YouTube. Feel free. Joined by Butch RosenBalm. We're here to discuss that grade. Kevin Costner. Rob, when did you first see this?
Oh, you're cutting out, man. I think you asked me when I first saw it. Is that correct?
Yes, sorry.
Listen, I saw it in the theater when it came out. I went with a friend of mine named Dwight, and we saw it actually during the week, which is I didn't think anyone of us realized it was as long as it was.
Yeah, this movie, I was pointing this out to my wife when I was watching this. It was like years ago, watch it. It was 2 hours long. And she's like, this movie's really long. I said, yeah, but it's really good, too. I like how they open this, like in the literally open range, no pun intended, but in a sense, the open prairie, where the Searchers is like desert porn. This is sort of prairie porn, but it's really, really good. I love how they shoot this. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, Kevin Costner in the commentary on the DVD gives a lot of right at the beginning. He starts giving a lot of credit to the director of photography, and I agree. I mean, there's just some beautiful, beautiful scenery in there. And as I was rewatching the film with the commentary, like I'm breaking that up into two words, the commentary. I was kind of reminded. I don't know if you've ever seen or played the video game Red Dead Redemption 2. But there's a lot of scenery in open range that makes me think of Red Dead 2. Red Dead 1, but Red Dead 2 is just such a much more beautiful game because, improved technology and all that.
Yeah, I've played Red Dead Revolver, Red Dead Redemption 1, and Red Dead Redemption 2. I hope we get a return of Red Harlow in the next installment. That would be really cool. But
have you heard the theory that Uncle is Red Harlow?
I've heard that theory. It's really interesting, and there's like enough hints that he could be, which is like, it's cool, but we'll see. Now, who do you think the strange man is?
No telling.
Nah, no.
It's obviously some sort of supernatural creature. I would say he's Clint Eastwood from
Pale Rider.
Drifter.
That too. That or Pale Rider too. It could be
same character, ain't it?
Right, same character. We all wish we were Herbert Moon, but
as you know, my last name is Rosenbaum, which I don't know if you know is Jewish. And
right.
Herbert Moon, for those of you that don't know, he's a storekeeper in one of the main towns, Armadillo. He's very racist. He's very horrible. I used to, I would, if he didn't say anything, I'd just go in and buy what I need. But if he said something, especially, anti-Jew, I would like usually pull out my gun, my rope and tie him up, hog tie him, and then rob him, and then get right behind him with a double-barrel shotgun and blow him off. Of course, the thing is, you come back around and he's back alive again. So, in the scheme of things, he probably died several hundred times.
I gotta tell you, I live to play Red Dead Redemption 2 just to do it in first person mode, just to go up to Herbert Moon and blow his head off every single day. Just my wife's like, didn't you just kill that guy? I'm like, yeah, but it's worth it. It's so worth it.
It
is. It's the one joy I can get out of gaming, honey. But but with this, I love the fact that I love the town. You were saying that they built the town, which I love.
I think it said it took about $1 million, and they had to they got like build a road because it was literally in the middle of nowhere, and that's why they filmed a lot of the pun intended open range scenes while that town was being built.
It actually, what I'll say though too, for a town that just gets built, it fits though, right? I love how they do this.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm surprised because most of the older western towns either are near a body of water or train tracks,
right.
And they don't have either, as I recall. So it is a little weird that it's just kind of nothing town. But mentioned it used to be a fort, so maybe that's the thing.
I think that's what fits this movie so well, though, too, because the villain, the owner of the town, the Irishman, he threatens the townspeople to send them out into the open prairie, and it's sort of it just fits this movie all the more that this town is literally just here in the middle of nowhere. Whereas if you probably this is the closest thing to civilization that's out here. And I think that's the one thing this story and this movie paints really well. Like, hey, this town out here in this prairie is it for this. It's sort of like a territory, if you will, in a weird way.
Oh yeah, it kind of reminds me of in history when one of the worst punishments was exile, because that was pretty much a fate worse than death unless you knew how to live out in the wild. So yeah, and when Michael Gambon, when he's like, "I'll throw you out there and you'll be freezing you, get our butts off," and then sometimes I will say one thing. Sometimes his accent is so thick, it's like, huh? I know I got threatened, but I don't know what you threatened me with. But I digress. So yeah, it's out in the middle of nowhere, and it kind of adds into the happen anywhere in the Old West. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
My mind, it's maybe Kansas, not Texas, but but it doesn't matter. It can happen anywhere in the West, and it gives it a real kind of every. Whereas, like later, like when we talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, it was just some little town in Texas.
Yeah. That's the thing too. It's just some town in the West. It's just some town in this prairie set in the Old West. Like you don't know where this is, but it could be anywhere in the Old West. Like especially like it could be in Montana. It could be and it's really well done, and it gives you. I think that's the thing too. This movie, it gives you the sense of you do see water, like not just in the town. Like you do see the town sort of get flooded with the rain, but
Yeah.
before that, you do see actual them crossing over water outside of the town, which is really great because you get the sense that this is literally an open world. That there's an open, it's the open West, and that's the thing this movie does really well. And it gives a more importance for the town itself too, which is really great.
Yeah, I mean, open world, open range. But it one of the biggest complaints I hear about this film when I try to recommend it to everybody, it's so slow. That's the point. If you don't, if you watch this movie through at least halfway and you don't get that, that's part of the point about it being slow and it takes its time. Um, I don't want to sound like the old man talking about the younger generation, because it's not just the younger generation, but I grew up in the 70s and 80s, before there was cell phones, before there was the internet. I mean, if I wanted to look something up, I either had to go home and pull up the old World Book Encyclopedia, or I had to wait for my mom to take me to the library and look something up. So, now, I need to know something. Hold on, let me get my phone. Boom, I've got the answer. So I think it can be a little bit of a challenge for somebody that's used to, and it's not quote an action flick end quote, but it is an action flick. It takes its time getting there. It kind of reminds me of Assault on Precinct 13, the original one by John Carpenter, which my wife has seen many times. She's like, "Oh God, we're gonna watch this movie again," and it takes so long for anything to happen. But that's the thing, is I've said it about Assault on Precinct 13 and Open Range. You've got these different, if you will, lines, these characters, these ribbons, and they're slowly tied together into this beautiful bow that tells this story.
In many ways, John Carpenter, at his heart, is a Western director.
I wish I could have done one. I mean, You could probably say Escape from New York, or Assault on Precinct 13, or the Mars movie, Escape from Mars. No, Invaders from Mars. I can't remember the title of it now. The one with Ice Cube. He makes a lot of almost westerns, including Big Trouble in Little China.
Yep.
But I would love to
Vampires.
see him do just a straight up western.
John Carpenter's The Vampires was almost like a western with vampires in it.
Oh yeah.
In a way, it really. I agree with you. I wish he would just flat out make a western, because he's pretty much. He pretty much is a western director in every way. Like the way he shoots his films, to the way he scores them, to the way he just. It's even Prince of Darkness in a weird way is like a western. It's a different kind of western, but it's a western. But to me, for people who complain this movie's slow, well, so is Obi-Wan killing Darth Vader. Okay,
It took 20 years.
Yeah, it took 20 years. Right? So this movie is just perfectly paced, is what I'll say for my taste. But we're fans of westerns, so it's beautifully paced. I love how, for the length, they get into the characters. They don't just get into Charlie and the boss. They get into the two people who are working under them, the guy who's been with them a little longer than the younger guy. They really do a good job with their character development with the four characters you meet, because when they kill the big guy, you actually give a shit.
Yeah, very much so. And it goes into the doctor and Annette Bening, who we initially think is the doctor's wife. It turns out she's his sister. Percy, I think his name's Percy, the guy that runs the livery stable. We found out a decent amount about him, and of course the main bad guy, the Irishman. God, I've got to look up his name. It's killing me at the moment. But we learn the main characters. We learn plenty about, even if it's not a lot. Like you said, it means something. Go back to make another Red Dead Redemption reference. Red Dead 2. Spoiler alert. When you play the first one as Arthur, and you have to care for your horse through the whole game.
Yeah.
The reason that is right, towards the end of the main story, your horse gets killed.
Yeah.
You have to do that. It doesn't have any impact. And I knew I could tell the story as I was playing the game that we were coming towards the end, and then all of a sudden the horse dies. And there's this great moment where the main character, Arthur, leans down to his horse as it's dying, and he goes, "Thank you."
Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I hope you heard at least some of that.
I didn't hear. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Did you get any of that about the horse on Red
I heard
Dead?
the horse. Yeah, I heard the horse.
I was just gonna say, when Mose dies, it means something. It's not just, oh yeah, the big guy died.
Yeah, right. What Butch was trying to say was, in Red Dead Redemption 2, at the end, Arthur Morgan is dying of tuberculosis, basically, and his horse. Something happens where his horse dies, and you spend the game bonding with your horse. That's not all you do, but you do have to spend time with your horse, and the horse becomes a character. So spent all this time, this relationship with your horse, and when a horse dies, he says thank you, and I like the fact that the actor won best voice actor for the Red Dead Redemption character. I think his name's Rod or something, I forget. But he really did a good job doing that character. I mean, he had talked about how he had to come back in and do more dialogue for the horse, where he had to say, "Good boy, good girl, that's a girl." He said, "They called me." He goes, they said, "Hey, the ladies like when you talk to the horse. You got to come back in the studio." He's like, "Okay."
You gotta feed the horse. You gotta rub. You gotta to scrub it. You've gotta to pet it. Like you said, you gotta bond with it, and you have to keep doing this stuff.
You know what the real complaint is when you're mid train robbery and your horse takes a hard left into the train.
Or you're doing that and you don't realize where you're at, and the train is going over a bridged track, and you're like, dun, 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 and then the horse just, you're like, son of a
I've had I've had my horse throw my ass because of a bear coming at me.
snake or wolf. Yep,
Cougar.
panther.
The horse is gone. It's like, thanks, buddy.
That's why, after I played it a while, that's why I would tie my horse up a little bit away and, pet him, rub him down, give him some, and then go hunting. 'Cause that way it didn't throw me.
I wish in Red Dead that when you walk into the saloon, they'd give you a choice of dialogue and just say, yeah, someone go take my horse. Just go ahead. He's right out there. Because that would be me. That just
I had one horse, and I'd actually bought it, and that horse jumped at everything, threw me like 3 times, going from Saint Denis to Rhodes. So I stopped when I got close to Rhodes, got down, took my saddle off, shot the horse in the head, and went and bought another one.
the mission where you collect the debt from Winston Holmes, where you get hunt for the cougar in the cave. I don't know if you did that one, but
Yep.
I always take his horse. Every time I would go back and play this game, I take his horse and I breed it and make it my own. So I have two different horses. So when I did it this time around, I took the horse. Only this time, the horse got killed, and I had no horse reviver at all, which is like gold in that game.
Yep.
Like,
I went in up to the north and got the white Arabian,
ooh,
captured that, and that was the one I rode for the. Really, I've only really even marginally played it one time, and that's the horse. And I was telling my wife, I said, "What's the name? What's a good name for a horse? This white horse?" And she came up with Sound of Music, Edelweiss.
yeah.
That's the name of my white Arabian. So
I got this solid black Mustang, and I called it the Shadow. Literally, I said I need this horse to mimic a laugh.
I bought the pre-order, so I got a horse for free, a pretty good horse. I forget what kind it is, and something that we'll eventually get to, I'm sure. So this will be the first time I guess we bring it up. Westerns are very similar to samurai films,
Yeah.
and ditto, especially Magnificent Seven, Seven Samurai. So I didn't want to name it Eastwood or Wayne or anything like that. So that horse, which is still alive by the way, his name is Mafuni.
Nice, nice. See, I couldn't like. I named one the Shadow, one Hatcher. I named a brown horse male horse Hatcher. So I named one horse Kiki for a girl. I I actually tried to give them female. I named one horse Rebecca. My wife's like, "Who the fuck is Rebecca?" I'm like it's just a name.
I actually, this one horse was it was kind of a it wouldn't necessarily throw me, but it would rear up when and it start. I said this horse is the bane of my existence. Well, I work with a lady whose last name is Bane, so I ended up naming the horse Bane. And then he finally threw me, and the legendary albino alligator ate me, and I'm like, okay. And I took Bane and sold him.
The things we have done with horse. Like I've literally jumped off the cliff with my horse. Like I don't
And
care.
no, let's just not even talk about that. How many times it may or may not have. There's plenty of time to look at it. I imagine that Arthur or John looks at the horse looks at Arthur or John, and he's just like, "Sorry, dude."
it was a moment of relapse. But with open range, with open range, I do love how they get Robert Duvall to ride the horses up back to the wagon. It's a beautiful scene. I love the fact that they get this open prairie and they make the town feel important because it is. Like the characters are part of the story, but the town is a character itself too.
Yep. Yep.
And I love. What did you think of the flood in the town? Like how they had the water.
That was amazing. I used to play and run a horror western role playing game called Deadlands, all one word. Everybody wants to look it up. And I would watch westerns to try and be better with my descriptions when I was running the game. Like you come into town and it's very dusty and there's dust coming up from your horse, or it's really muddy if it's been raining. And right after that, the next time I ran, after seeing open range, the next time we went into a town, guess what? It was pouring down rain, and all my players had to make rolls about being able to ride their horse in the rain. And come to find out, nobody had bothered to spend many points in horse riding. But it was. I don't know how realistic it was. I know Kevin Costner tries to make it pretty realistic, but one of the things I really liked was the 2x4s or 4x4s or 2x6s or whatever, the pieces of wood they have connecting across the street, trying to to be able to get there without just falling in. And there's an important scene there where there's a dog that is being swept away, and Kevin Costner jumps in the water and saves it. Spearman's trying to save it too, but Charlie's the one that does. Charlie's Kevin Costner. Spearman is Robert Duvall for folks that haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And Charlie is obviously maybe not the widest of knights, but this shows the difference explicitly between him and the Irishman. Whereas the Irishman be like, it's an effing dog, or however he would say it, because I'm horrible at Irish accents. They always sound like Lucky Charms. Whereas, he's now, of course, Charlie knows what he's doing, so maybe he's not necessarily putting his life in danger, but he goes to save the dog.
Well, I love the fact that by this time they've lost. By the time this scene happens, they themselves have lost the dog. Which is really, everything clicks with this movie for people. I think that's the thing too. Like when you have the bushwhack scene that happens, when they go to confront the guys with the mask, and you get the sense that Charlie has a past, because I'd ask you this, like when he points that gun at the guy when he's on the ground, did you get the sense of, okay, there's more to Charlie here than meets the eye?
Yeah, I think that was. We noticed he didn't say much during the whole time, but yeah, that was the scene. Was like, this is to me right away. I thought he was a Civil War vet, and I think we mentioned this in Liberty Valance last video. When we grew up, the veterans that you knew, the biggest majority of them didn't talk about their experiences in the war. And that usually the guy that was, I was over there and I killed this one and I killed that one and I killed another one. Those are the guys who shit, because usually, it affects different people different ways, but that's usually the guy you can tell. And Charlie is obviously, especially in the scene when they take Button to the doctor, and Charlie is asleep, and you think that one of the masked guys has made it, and Charlie jumps up to shoot him, and he's having a dream. He's having a flashback. He's obviously got PTSD. So, seen some shit, and it's messed with him.
I love how that scene's done too. It's so beautifully done, because you think, oh, he's just asleep, which he is, but I love how they have the guy stand in the corner. The way they shot and did that was amazing, and I love how really Duvall and I know people are going to think I'm crazy, but Duvall and gosh, oh God, Costner do not get enough credit for what they do here. I mean, they're just on par. They're just perfect together. And him being just sitting there and him getting up, and like you said, it's PTSD because he's seen some shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like dude, you've had a messed up life. Like there's things. I like how when him and his boss are talking, they've been together for 10 years, almost a decade, but there's sins they haven't told each other, and they do have that discussion.
Yeah, you can tell that they've spent some time together, and Boss was probably in the Civil War also. Maybe he got wounded early and left. So I've always got the impression he knew that Charlie, sorry, brain fart. Charlie had done some stuff, and it's one of those things. Again, going one veteran to another. Not that I know I'm not. I don't think you are, but there's a little bit of a brotherhood, and it's like, yeah, you've seen some shit, and I don't say they cover for each other, but they understand. And Boss Spearman is trying to help. I don't want to say genteel, but curb the more baser aspects of Charlie and not turn to the gun right away and start killing somebody. When they go after the guys they're wearing the masks, and like you said, he Costner pulls the gun and he's about to kill the guy. Boss is kind of like, and I'm paraphrasing here, hey, we don't need to do that, and they take their clothes, and I think they take their horses, and basically, Boss is like, we did this. The two of us did this to the four of you. We can shoot anytime we want. Trying to do, I don't know, maybe it's not the right thing, but trying to not go elevate it to that higher level, which is Charlie's initial response. And of course, we've seen the film, that doesn't work. So there comes a point where it's kind of like it's almost coming back again to Liberty Valance. Boss is almost kind of like Jimmy Stewart, and Kevin Costner is almost kind of like John Wayne, except now the older one is the less violent. But there comes a point, and I think that might be the point of every Western. There just comes a point where it's like, you can try to be nice, you can try to do good, and try to give everybody the benefit of it out, and you can try. It's like, damn it, we got to strap on some iron and go shoot some lead.
I think that's the thing too. Like during the actual the shootout in town, there's a lot of really great, interesting moments. I love how Costner's like, "Are you the one who shot our friend?" And he's
God,
like,
"I love that scene."
Bam! And he just plugs him.
And the guy playing that got the killer. He's got this little bowler hat. He's got his arm and he's like, "Yeah, and I shot the boy too, and I enjoyed it." And you're just like, "Oh my God!" I mean, he does a good job. You instantly already hate him. And he's like, bam, and then the next scene is that guy, and he's got his hat's flying off, and he's got a bullet hole in his head, and he just falls back. And there's 4 or 5, I forget how many people. There's that killer, the Irishman, and 2 or 3 guys on the edge, and they all just kind of like. I mean, it's that point. Okay, you know what? We're to the point where we've talked. We've tried to talk to you. We've tried to reason with you. You don't want to listen to that. Bosses talk. Have at it, Charlie.
Yep. I love how too, in that even during the gunfight too, there's a moment where Charlie does shoot somebody and he's going to go kill somebody, and Boss is like, no, that's no. And he didn't do it for the guy on the ground. He did it for Charlie's sake. No, there's a difference between us getting justice or vengeance and just cold-blooded murder.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Spillman's character does, hit where Duvall's character does so well. He's really that great balance between Charlie and himself. Like you said, he's I want like he's not Liberty Valance, because Liberty Valance would not shoot somebody. Like Liberty Valance couldn't shoot somebody. We saw that.
Oh, you mean Jimmy Stewart's character, not
Right.
Liberty.
Right. Stewart's character couldn't shoot. With Boss's character, he can shoot and does. But with his character, he knows when not to shoot somebody. Like he knows when, hey, there's no reason to kill this person. And that's really a great moment in that movie.
My friend Dwight that I went and saw this with, we both commented several times on watching the film. This was very reminiscent of the style of characters that we played in that Deadlands game. Me being Kevin Costner's Charlie, and Dwight being Boss Spearman, Robert Duvall. And in that role-playing game, there's a game mechanic of advantages and disadvantages. And one of the disadvantages is, I believe it's called mean as a rattler, where you don't let your enemies live. I remember the first time I read it, and every time I read this, I go, that's a disadvantage. But when Charlie is going to kill that guy, and he even says something to the effect of, I don't believe in letting my enemies live. Yeah. And looking at it at that moment, it makes perfect sense. I completely understand why he's going to kill him. And the poor guy is literally, he's already thrown down his guns. He's trying to crawl away, and he's like, Mister, if you let me go, I swear to you, I'll never come back. And like you said, Robert Duvall's Boss Spearman comes up, hey, he's beat. Basically, he's calling Rocky off of Ivan Drago. He's beat. Yeah. Let him go. And he even tells him, and Spearman even tells him when he goes, and he's like, thank you. He's like, you get the hell out of here, and you don't ever come back, because I always get the impression I'll kill you myself.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference too between Duvall's character and Stewart's character, where Duvall's character is like, I will kill you if you come back, and it's really well done. And I like what Costner's character says to Charlie before Duvall's character steps in. I'm not looking over my shoulder my whole life, which is really a great, oh shit, he's just going to execute this dude right here. But he stops him, it's sort of like a soul saving moment. And it's so well done. It doesn't take away from the characters. It just adds to them. And I love how where Annette Bening's character gets sort of taken, and then you do sort of see Charlie go bam, bam, just walk up and shoot the dude. Really, the gunplay in this is bitchin', people.
There's one scene, and even when the first time I saw it, I thought how ridiculous it is, but I still love it. After the gunfight starts, there's one where they turn, and I can't remember if Spearman shoots him with a shotgun or Costner shoots him with a 6-gun, and the guy just goes flying. And it's utterly ridiculous because, if you look at it and if you've shotguns, if it hits with that much force, it's coming back with that much force when you shoot it. But it still just looks so good.
Yeah, there's a scene where Duvall's character is in a barn or something, and the guy's walking along outside, and you can see sort of the guy's shadow up against the wall, and he aims it and he blasts the dude, and it gives way. It's really a cool scene. If you guys need to go see this movie.
It really is one of my favorite gunfights, and I should probably sit down and try to figure out my top 5, top 10 gunfights. This is pretty high in it, and it's not like there's any kind of crazy or super moments. It's not Chow Yun-Fat and the Killer or Hard Boiled with two Morettas going around killing hundreds of people. Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoy my Chow Yun-Fat films, but I got a little puppy growling at me. Come here. Callie.
hi, doggy. Hi, doggy.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's definitely top 10, maybe top 5, and possibly even number 1.
I think for me, like we will do shootout, like our top 5 shootouts in a completely separate video, because I don't want to put you on the spot because there's so many. But this here, like, I will put this high up because I'll give this 4. This would be number 4 on my list, simply because of what they do to build up to this.
Yes.
Like, for all the pacing they do, it's. I know some people might look at this movie, oh, it's so slow, but that's the point of it. It's methodical and it's building up to that gunfight where, hey, they've tried it. They've tried it Duvall's character's way. Now it's Charlie's way, but there's still that mutual respect for these two characters where Boss Spillman's like, don't execute this guy, and Charlie listens to him. And even in the middle of that, all that craziness going on, it's such a great moment. And I love how the townspeople, Charlie's words really hit the townspeople like, you're all men, aren't you? Like, stand up for yourself. It really gives that old Western where you see where these characters like get these other men to man up. Like, you're men, aren't you? Like, you have guns, like, defend yourselves. And that's what Charlie and Spillman represent to the townspeople is freedom. And they really deliver that too.
Yeah, I've known people, I've recommended this film to people, and they're like, this movie's so slow. And it's like, you're missing the point. If you get, I don't know, halfway, probably even just a third of the way through this film, and you don't understand why it's moving slow, and I mean, I get it. It's the first little bit of it can be a hard rewatch, but there's so much beautiful scenery, and there's so many good points about each of the characters. Yeah, just if you have a problem with it, it's not very boom, boom, boom. If that's the kind of film you're in for, no, it's not that kind of film. It's actually kind of reminds. I was thinking about how the commentary with Kevin Costner on the DVD reminds me of the film, because there's points where he'll be talking and he'll just kind of fade off a little bit, and then he'll start going. And I think that may be just Kevin Costner. Obviously I don't know the man, and it's not intended as an insult. He just strikes me as a very thoughtful person, and it's kind of like Assault on Precinct 13, the original, where John Carpenter takes all these various characters and storylines and ties them to this beautiful bow that is this story. And this is very similar, in my opinion.
What's your favorite scene in this movie?
I think it's going to be are you the one that killed our friend? Yeah, I shot the boy. Bam! That is, me and Dwight talked about how this is we saw the film, how this is very reminiscent of the type of characters we play. And that is me. Dwight starts laughing when we see this scene in the theater, and he's like, God, that's so you.
I love that scene you just described. That's my favorite scene, is that and the dream sequence. I think they're both, like, this whole movie is really great. I love the jail cell sequence when Charlie and Boss Spillman go in and they take chloroform to the sheriff. He's like, I stole this from the doc. I'm like, you what?
There's a great scene. Well, not a great scene. It's a great line. I forget exactly what's going on, and I think it's when after the fight started out, and the Irishman Michael Gambon is talking to the marshal, and the marshal just screams, "We ain't ourselves," or something like that. It's just like, he comes across as the coward that he is.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the man's got a point. I mean, if I'm going out, if I have to, I don't know what your gunslinging skills are. I don't know what mine are, because I've not had too many calling you out in the middle at noon or high noon. But
Right.
if I'm going to go out and have to draw against somebody, I want every advantage. I want to be clear of mine. I want my reflexes to work. I want my gun to be clean and full. I don't want to have some lingering chloroform in my head.
There needed to be a line. Listen, I've been drinking chloroform and not willingly. I love Duvall. Duvall got it. You could tell Duvall was having fun with that one. That's what I love about that scene too. He's like
the scene where he puts the not the mask, the chloroform rag on him. He's just like really getting in there, and he's not playing around.
It's criminal that Duvall has never won an Academy Award, is it not?
Yeah, he's the type of actor. I wouldn't want him in every role, but when he plays the good role or a role that really suits him, my understanding is Kevin Costner and when he decided to do this film, that was his one and only choice to play Spearman. Hold on just a sec. I'm gonna set her down. He kind of unspoken thing was that if Duvall said no, he might not have done it. Mm-hmm. So, this is just a good role for him.
Yeah, it's really a great casting selection. How they get Duvall and Costner. Costner produces it. He directs it, and he directs us to perfection. He really, Clint Eastwood directed a lot of westerns in his life, but it was nice to see. Because up until that point, I had only seen Clint Eastwood from an actor direct a western, and I had not seen. By the time I had not seen John Wayne's The Alamo yet. When I had seen,
I was going to ask you that.
I did see The Alamo after I saw Open Range. I don't know how I didn't see The Alamo till later, but I think my grandfather skipped a western on me. I'll put it on him. but that or I did, one or the other. But this was so good. Like, it was so different. It wasn't when you see John Wayne's The Alamo, it's not what Clint Eastwood did. It's not what Kevin Costner does in Open Range. But when you see Kevin Costner's Open Range, it's not what Clint Eastwood did in High Plains Drifter or the movies he directed, or even Unforgiven. It's something different. Like, these actors, when they direct a western, they use their own judgment. They don't do what someone else did, which is great.
Yeah, but also, that's three different people filming three different films. So, in some weird alternate universe, I like to think that all three of them directed the same type of film. Like maybe John Wayne did Rio Bravo, Clint Eastwood did El Dorado, and Kevin Costner did Rio Lobo. I think one of their experiences, of course, as an actor, John Wayne was the most popular actor from like 1950 to 1970 or something. So he knew what the audiences wanted, so he tried to give it to them. Clint Eastwood, however, was like, I want to do something a little different.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner, like I said, I think he just might be I don't make him sound like he's dumb and say that he's slow-witted, but he's very thoughtful and takes him a minute to get it out, maybe because he wants to convey the whole point of it. And this and Dances with Wolves and every movie of his that I can think of that he directed is like that.
Yeah, he's very. I think that's the thing with his films; they're very methodical when he directs them, and they are. I mean, this movie especially, it's the way it's shot, from the way it's acted, everything's methodically done, and it's done to perfection. Really, I give this a solid 10. What do you give it, Butch?
Oh yeah, if it's not 9+, it's a 10.
Definitely, for sure.
It's one of my favorites.
What do you like? We were talking about The Mandalorian before. Do you think the reason The Mandalorian's successful is because people are wanting westerns or craving them?
It very well could be. I think a lot of the people don't even realize how Western The Mandalorian is. I mean, me and my wife were watching, I'm like, oh, this is this episode. This is my wife didn't know what Lone Wolf and Cub was, but here's the Lone Wolf and Cub episode. Here's the joining with the sheriff. Here's the person I used to know. Here's the Magnificent Seven episode. And it was just boom, but yeah. So I don't know if it's necessarily a Western, but telling that type of story of, if you will, a simple man just trying to make his way in the West / universe. I think they're looking for good stories with characters like this. Because the Mandalorian, you could drop him into a Western. He basically is. And the character would fit in just fine.
Yeah, I think, to me, when I look at The Mandalorian, if you look at films like the Dollar Trilogy, that was the original Mandalorian, really, when you look at it that way. I do think that's the I'm not taking anything away from what they're doing. But to me, the reason The Mandalorian is successful is because people are craving Westerns. They subconsciously, whether they've seen one or not, because to me, that's what this is. This is a Western. Star Wars was a Western set in outer space. I mean, even George Lucas, I think, admitted that. But that's what The Mandalorian is, too. It's a Western set in outer space. And it's pretty much a gunslinger show. I mean, all the way, just with Star Wars. But
Roddenberry said that Star Trek was wagon train in space. I mean, I don't want to say that all the great sci-fi comes from Westerns, but it just shows the timelessness of these characters that you can take Clint Eastwood and make a Boba Fett or a Mandalorian, and it's basically the same character, just in a different setting.
What's your favorite thing to do in Red Dead Redemption 2? I gotta ask you this.
I guess it's probably I finished the storyline. Those of you that know how the story ends, and then the epilogue, if you will. Tried to build my honor up, and you ride along, and you know how you're supposed to greet somebody, and if you greet them positively, it helps build towards your good honor. I run into these assholes, and they want to say something, like antagonize. You want to come back here and say that again? And it's just, my favorite thing is to just not take any crap off from nobody. And if they're nice, I'm nice. I love going through Saint Denis and just like, hello, how are you? Going through, having the positive, and then you get out in the middle of nowhere, and there's some asshole that thinks, or you ride up on somebody and they got their little camp, and you need to get out of here. Why? The road's right here. I'm on the road. So yeah, just not take any crap off anybody.
I'm the worst kind of offender in Red Dead Redemption 2, because I love to go into town and just start shit, throwing dynamite, and just, hey, it's a game.
When is it Lenny that gets killed in Rhodes?
He gets killed in Saint Denis.
Okay, there's somebody that gets killed going into Rhodes.
Yeah.
As soon as that part of the story stopped and I had control of the character again, swallowed my tonic, loaded up on 2 sawed-off shotguns, and just going through that town as fast as I trying, bam, 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 load, just killing every person that I can see. And I did this for like 15 minutes. And after I finally died the second time, I was like, okay, is it my anger spent? No, not really, but we're going to stop doing that now.
It's really a fun game for those who haven't played Red Dead Redemption. Any of them. Red Dead Revolver. They're all fun games. And the movie we've been talking about is really, really awesome. You guys got to check it out. Open Range. Butch, is there anything you want to add before we go, man?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what you just said. If you haven't watched it, watch it. And if you need to, put the remote or whatever over to the side, put your phone to the side, just sit back and enjoy the story that it has to tell you. And if you watch it all and you don't like it, well, I'm sorry. That's about all I can tell you.
Is Friday good for you for the Wild Bunch? Because that's what we're covering next.
Oh, my goodness. That's probably my number one gunslinging or gunfight. I know I'll go into that later. If it's not, I will let you know. How about that?
Yes, please do. And after we do the Wild Bunch, there's two movies I want to do with you on one night, which is Wyatt Earp and Tombstone, because because they're both good comparison movies, and I think one's a little more accurate than the other. But we're gonna do the Wild Bunch next, guys. Butch, man, thank you so much for being patient with me.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me, buddy.
Anytime, man. You have a great night.
You too.
Bye bye.
See ya.